and welcome to West Bloomfield 911. I'm Officer Rick, and on behalf of Chief Mike Patton and my brothers and sisters in the West Bloomfield Police Department, we are so glad that you turned us on. And today, to my right, as always, my esteemed colleague, my friend, my co-host, Dave McNealy. How are you, David?
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, and you are David today, not Donald.
Not Donald.
Okay.
Previous episodes, folks, he called me Donald.
Yes, but we'll call you David today. So glad you're here with us. And to my left, another dear friend, Deputy Chief Curt Lawson.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
DC, thanks for coming on.
Morning,
Dave,
DC.
thanks for having me.
DC, don't run away. We're going to do a special segment we call the Corner Spotlight. David is going to tell the folks about one of our newer people. So David, take her away.
Folks, take a look up at your screen and you're going to see the smiling face of Brittany Moore. Brittany is one of our dispatchers out of our communications bureau. Interesting thing about Brittany is she came to us from AT&T, so she has no law enforcement background, but she does have a customer service background, and you definitely need it sometimes being a dispatcher. Be good to our dispatchers, they work real hard. Brittany started with us back in June. One of her favorite foods is spaghetti, and this is a big debate in my house. My kids love my spaghetti. My wife gets really upset because they love my spaghetti more than hers. So we have that in common, Brittany. One of her favorite books is The Darkest Child by Dolores Phillips. One of her favorite films is going to be, favorite musicals is going to be by Cameron Johnson. And it is a musical, a romantic musical. One of her favorite types of music is gospel. And some of her favorite accomplishments and hobbies, she loves to read and sing, and she likes bugging her husband. That's pretty funny. One of her favorite quotes is, "Live by the code, reap what you sow, and receive what you give." And we're going to close the spotlight on Brittany. Thanks.
And you know, I think Brittany went to the same school my wife went to. She likes to bug her husband. And because of that, Brittany, we're going to have you sing for us at the station one day. Do you think it's a good idea, DC?
Sounds great to me. Bring everyone together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, we are going to do a safety tip today, so please remember to take care of your kiddies on those cell phones. They have cell phones that give them the opportunity to keep in touch with the world, and much of that world isn't safe. So again, like we would protect them in real life, we want to protect them in the virtual world as well. So when you're talking to your kids, try to remember the acronym SMART, S-M-A-R-T. The S stands for stay safe. In other words, don't give personal information over on your cell phone. The M stands for meet up. In other words, don't meet up with people you don't know. If you're a child, young person, always ask an adult to make sure that it is safe to meet up with them. And the A, of course, is for accepting files. Any information, text messages, files, games of any kind, if you're not certain where it's coming from, don't accept it. And the R is for reliable. You know, when I was a kid, they would always say, don't believe everything you see on TV. Well, today, don't believe everything you see on your cell phone or on the internet. Make sure it's reliable before you believe it. And the T stands for tell an adult. Anytime you're not certain about something, if something makes you feel a little queasy, uncomfortable, afraid, tell an adult, let them help you through it, because a lot of times maybe an adult on the other end that's trying to do something or say something bad to a young person. So young people, remember the acronym SMART. Parents, remember to be smart. Help your kids stay safe on cell phone safety. Folks, we will be right back with our very special guest, a dear friend of ours, and also the second in command in the West Bloomfield Police Department, Deputy Chief Curt Lawson. Don't go away.
You're watching West Bloomfield 911 on Civic Center TV, a service of the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission. For more information or to watch episodes on demand, visit civiccentertv.com/WB911. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
The West Bloomfield Police Foundation raises money to help those who protect and serve the community. Whether it's emotional or financial support, the foundation provides a helping hand to officers, their families, and those in the community. For more information on the West Bloomfield Police Foundation, contact Curt Lawson at 248-975-8900 or visit wbpolicefoundation.org.
And we are back. We're glad you stuck around to join us. Once again, our guest is Deputy Chief Curt Lawson. DC, thanks for coming on.
You're so welcome.
You know, the deputy chief position, we'd had it in the past, and then when we went through a bad economy and all that sort of thing, that position disappeared. And though we were very fortunate, Chief Patton steered us through some rough times where we didn't lay anybody off. So unlike a lot of agencies in the area, but we did lose a couple of people through attrition. Now we're working to bring them back. And one of the positions brought back was that of deputy chief. And you were the right man for the right job at the right time.
Thank you. That's very nice, Rick.
And I sincerely mean that. And so tell us what spurred you to want to do the deputy chief's position, because it has its own issues. You know,
Sure.
you higher up, you got different problems. You have more people under your command, which means more headaches for you. So you could lose your hair. Oh, sorry, you already did.
It's gone. It's gone.
Tell us why you took the deputy chief's position. What do you see regarding it, and your vision regarding
Well,
that?
you're certainly right. I mean, when I started my career, the first 16 years, we had 5 lieutenants and a captain, and then the recession hit, and we had to make some hard choices, and we lost a lot of personnel through retirements. And one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to push as many people as we could to the road. So what the chief decided to do is we were going to reduce our lieutenant ranks to 3, and then we got rid of the deputy chief position, which, there was a captain position that it kind of transformed into the deputy chief,
Right.
which was held by Joe Chapin, did a
Yes.
great job. So for quite a while,
Who has since retired.
yes. So for quite a while, we had 3 lieutenants and a chief, and that's just something we felt we had to do. As the economy kind of went downhill, and as it's kind of come back, we realized that we got a little bit behind, and that we wanted to reinstill that deputy chief's position. And Chief Patton decided that in 2015 was the time to do it, and I'm very thankful that he chose me to be the one.
Can you give us a little bit of a background that gave you some qualifications? I think that I'm just going to peek into your background
Sure.
for the viewers. I believe you went to the National FBI Academy, correct? Can you give us a little bit of your background that made you qualified for this position?
Sure. Well, I've been very fortunate within the police department. I've done, many things, and I give credit to Chief Cronin and Chief Patton for letting me be so well-rounded. I started in 1994 as a cadet,
Yep.
and in 1995 I became an officer, and I, worked all 3 shifts and was on the special response team. I was able to go to Sonic, which is a surveillance and narcotic task force in Farmington Hills. I was down there for 5 years.
You want to tell folks what that acronym stands for?
Sonic is Southern Oakland Narcotics Intelligence Consortium.
Yep.
At the time, it was based out of the city of Farmington Hills, which was, in a way, it was really good for me because I got to see how another department operated and how that command staff, operated and how they ran things. So it was really good for me. I was promoted out of Sonic to a lieutenant and brought up to administration, and it was really an eye-opening experience for me
remember that,
because
yes.
I was always on the operational level of police work, but now I'm more of the supervisor administrator, and I learned about budgeting and liaisoning with township officials and really getting to know community leaders and religious leaders, and I've really come to enjoy that. So all of those things really made me more of a well-rounded person. In 2014, I had the opportunity to go to the Detective Bureau, where I oversaw investigations for a year, and really enjoyed kind of getting back with the guys again for 1 year and
More hands-on
reconnecting.
stuff.
Yeah, reconnecting and really trying to instill a team concept with the people, and kind of push my philosophy of the team is so important. And then the chief approached me about the deputy chief's position, and I thought it was just a great opportunity to kind of to get back into administration and do what I can to help the department.
Well, I want to let the people know, and I say this, and you and I have spoken off camera, so I'm not saying anything just for the public there. But as you said, you started out as a cadet, which today we call them police service aides. That was a great learning experience for you. And I remember when you came in as a cadet, and I got to say, my little cadet's grown up. But it's a great learning experience to be a cadet. And I want you to touch on that a bit for our own police service aides who might think, geez, I'm here on the bottom or whatever. Well, you got to start somewhere. Explain how that helped you grow as a young man,
Sure.
so that you could fulfill that role as a police officer.
Well, when you get out of college, you want to get into law enforcement if that's the thing the career path you've chosen, and really being a PSA or a police service aide or a cadet is a great opportunity to come into a department and learn so many different things. Whether it's dealing with the prisoners, you're talking to the public at the front desk, you're taking reports, you're taking calls over the phone, you're learning how to speak with people, to talk to the public. So I think it's a great opportunity to get your feet wet and learn about that department before, is that department right for you? Do you want a bigger department? Do you want a small department? So,
do I even really want to be a police officer?
do you want to be a
You're
police
developing your
officer?
communication skills, and like you said, with the public, it's so important that
Absolutely.
contact, because then you're going to know for sure whether or not you really want to do this job.
And as an administrator, we get a chance to look at that person to see if that person's a right fit for us.
Yes, and you also get to learn how to speak to fellow officers.
Correct.
And let's talk a little bit about being in Sonic, not necessarily the jobs you did there, but you made an interesting comment that it was assigned as in Farmington Hills at that time, so you got to see another department. Now, both David and I have worked for other police agencies prior to coming here to West Bloomfield, and I know David would agree with me, coming here we landed on our feet. You never worked for another police agency, and you have a great attitude, and you have to do what you do, because there's a lot of interaction with a whole gamut of people. But every agency's got those people who think it's greener somewhere else.
Sure.
And I tell people, look, it can always get worse, because I have worked at worse. Did that give you an opportunity to see that, and that's not to be critical of Farmington Hills, but to make you appreciate what we have here?
You're absolutely right. And when I went to Farmington Hills, what I tried to do is I tried to take the good of what I saw, whether it's the good policies or the good procedures, the way they operated, bring all of that I learned and I saw back to West Bloomfield when I came back, and try to instill that within our department. And that being said, yes, I'm very appreciative of where I work, and I think we've got a very good thing going. I think the train's on the track going the right direction.
Yes.
I'm really excited about the influx of young officers and young supervisors. Like I said, I've really tried to instill a team concept. I think part of that is, in the lower level of our station, you see the thin blue line, and now we've incorporated those in our police cars. And to me, that thin blue line is a reminder to the officers that, we're a family, we're a team, we're in this together. We're out in the community solving problems.
Yes.
We're using our law enforcement capabilities and our enforcement powers to really solve problems within the community. So I've really enjoyed my current position as deputy chief, and I've really been able to to get out into the department. One of the first things I wanted to do is, where are we deficient? And some of the things I saw was communication. We have some communication issues,
internal communication?
internal and also external. How we communicate with the public. So what I try to do is I try to get out into the department. I try to talk to the officers. I encourage our sergeants to communicate with one another. I want more communication between our divisions. We just started a department-wide newsletter, which is just beginning, but I think that's really going to allow the division heads and the team heads to be able to put their 2 cents into, what do they want to talk about? They want to talk about training. They want to talk about, attaboy for one of their officers. So I think it's a great platform to enhance communication. And then as far as communication outside of the department, like you said earlier, Facebook, Twitter, we're going to launch Snapchat. We have Nixle. We do crime mapping.
Right.
And that's a great way for us to push out information and really control the narrative of what we want to tell the public, so we can keep the rumors to a minimum and get that information out there quickly and not wait for a news cycle.
Right.
It links our community to us. I know I've spoken to a lot of community folks, and they like being able to check Facebook and all those things. And you've kind of brought our agency to the 21st century with those things, so I commend you for that. And just on a personal note, I'm a marathon runner, and I know the deputy chief is also a runner, and for those of you guys don't know, he's an Ironman also.
That's right.
He's quite the athlete, so he doesn't just speak it, he lives it.
Yeah.
He embodies that concept and wants us all to excel, and he shows it every day.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, I think it's so important, physical fitness. And in our line of work, there's a lot of stresses. You know, when you're working the road or you're working a special unit or up in administration, you do have those stresses. And I think you need to have a healthy outlet. And for me, my whole life has been, you know, athletics. You know, I played high school baseball and junior hockey, and that was a great way to keep myself in shape. But then when I got into law enforcement, you know, that tailed off a little bit for a while, and I kind of felt like I needed to get back into it. And one of the things I found was triathlon. And yes, I've done some Ironman, and I love the physical aspect of it, but I also like the mental aspect of it. You know, keep pushing yourself, and I think it's actually helped me in my current job.
Well, and of course that runs in the family because your wife, who used to be an employee here.
Correct. She was a dispatcher for a short time.
Right, and has gone on to bigger and better things. And she is quite the athlete herself.
Well,
so it
lovely,
runs in the
his
family.
lovely wife.
Thank you.
Lovely wife.
Well, she's a school psychologist, but in her time off, she's a physical fitness pro.
Yep.
Just below bodybuilding, so she does physique, it's called, and you're very proud of her, and yes, very athletic.
And she has to be a psychologist to
To
live
deal
with
with
you,
me.
right? Yeah, absolutely.
I get therapy all the time.
Well, now let's talk about a little bit, as you said, and David mentioned, you brought us into the 21st century. It's something we'd been talking about for quite a while, and finally you and Chief Patton have done that, and I know you handled the media for that. But you mentioned communication, and one thing I think is very important is that the communication you talk about, from my standpoint, isn't just top down. You're always willing to hear from the officers, not just your supervisors. I have never felt that I could not go into your office and either vent or give you an opinion. Not that you always listen to my opinion, and you shouldn't necessarily, because you and the chief have to make those administrative decisions. But I never felt like I couldn't go in and talk to you and the chief and say, you know, look, I've got this idea, or this is something we think we should do, or whatever. I think the fact that it's two-way communication makes it very important.
Well, I think it is important, and I you know, there's no way that I'm gonna ever sit here and say that I'm the smartest person, that, you know, that 5 officers can't give me really good opinions, and I want to get different viewpoints, and I want to digest all that and get as much information as I can before maybe I make the decision or we make the decision together. So as a leader, you know, one of the things I like to do is try to empower the sergeants and lieutenants and the officers to kind of think for themselves and problem solve for themselves. Some of the bigger decisions that they may need help on, I have no problem making those decisions, but I do encourage their input.
Well, you know, and as the deputy chief, not that you have to in that role, but one of the things you also do for the police department, you are the president of the West Bloomfield Police Foundation. And the fact that it is an officer of higher rank, I think lends a lot of credibility and helps the foundation, because of obviously you have different contacts, meet different people.
Right.
So I commend you for that, because I used to be a treasurer for the foundation, and it has grown tremendously. And all of you guys, well, and David is now on there.
Yeah, I'm a trustee on it.
David-
And
is,
David brings a lot of
member.
talent to the table.
Yep.
And so I commend both of you for not only doing your duties and your obligations as law
Foundation
enforcement
is a good,
officers,
worthwhile
but
endeavor.
for
So
working in
Definitely, you know, the police foundation's really hit its stride. I think in the last 5 years, we've been able to raise a great deal of money. And when we had the tragic death of Sergeant O'Rourke,
Yes.
you know, we were able to provide quite a bit of money to the family to
Yes.
help them out. And you know, we keep doing our fundraisers, and we keep bringing in the money in case, you know, God forbid, something happens in the future.
Right.
But we not only help our own people, we
Yes.
help the community as well,
Yes,
for
we
those
do.
in need. So
Yes.
I think it's a great organization, and I'm certainly glad to be a part of it, and it's really a great team.
Absolutely. Now, what do you see as deputy chief, second from the top?
Sure.
And you're a young man, so you have a long career ahead of you. And I do not personally think it's out of the realm that someday you will wear the chief's hat, whether it's here or at another location, because you are one of the stars of the department. You've been on the fast track since you came here. There's no reason to see that trek is coming to an end. What do you see as deputy chief? Where do you want to see law enforcement go? Because we, unfortunately, in the press, we're getting a lot of bad press. some of it, most of it, in my opinion, is undeserved, but it's cyclical, and right now we're at the bottom of that cycle.
Right.
What do you see as Deputy Chief? What do you want to do to improve?
Well,
law
I think as
enforcement?
far as the department itself, you know, we need to have, I think it should be run like a business. And one of the things I identified, which I thought was really easy to identify, is like, what's our brand? And our brand has been partnership, professionalism, and customer service. We've done that for many years.
Yes.
We've done that very well. And it's something that I'm trying to imprint on all the young officers, that is what we are. And you know, that customer service has really helped us stay above the fray that we've seen nationally. We have so much support within our community for the police
Yes, we
department
do.
and the fire department. And that, I think, is from years of building up that capital.
We have a great relationship,
Yes.
and one of the things I always say, and I've said this to Chief Patton before and to you, is that I consider myself to be an ambassador when I walk out that door to our community, and I believe you're 100% on, and we've had this discussion too. We stay, knock on wood, we stay above that, and when I'm driving down the road, people are waving with all of their fingers at us, and I'm waving back, and I see parents and making it a point because they recognize the heat that we're under. But just to switch gears for a second, because I wanted to say this also, over your tenure, even as a lieutenant and things like that, before you were promoted to deputy chief, one thing I've noticed that you worked on was the quality of our work environment. And to me personally, for being one of your officers for 20 years, I know Rick's been here a lot longer, like horse and buggy time he's been here. But the quality of the work environment, we're going to have to go off.
When we're off the air, there'll be that EEOC complaint against them.
Gotcha.
The quality of our work environment, I've noticed that you were passionate about that before you became deputy chief, and you've continued on with that. And like I said, to switch gears, what's a new project or what's going on? I've noticed our cars are looking different. The carpet of the 20 years that I've been there has changed. These are little things. I think when you talk about our brand and our team concept, that when I come in and see this, I feel better when I'm coming to work. So I'm noticing it, and I know folks are noticing it within the department. What's a new project you're working on?
Well, I have quite a few projects I'm working on, but there's a reason for that. And you know, I think that the facility itself and the state that facility is in is a reflection upon the management. I think if you would go down to Detroit 10 years ago and you would drive downtown, you would see that it's not the same place that it is today.
Right.
And that's simply, I think, because of the leadership that you have down there from Mayor Dugan, from Mike Illich and Dan Gilbert. You know, they run things a tight ship. They expect a certain level of quality, and that's what we expect within our police department. So when you come to the police department and the bushes aren't trimmed and the windows aren't washed and you have old flooring, I think that's kind of a representation of what kind of management you have. So I think it's important that we keep those things up, but I also think it's important that, you know, you guys have a good work environment where we spend a lot of time at work.
Sure.
I want to have the officers feel that, you know, they're proud of where they work and a sense of ownership.
Well, that's home for at least 8 hours a day, if not longer.
Right. And to finish up your question on where we're going in the future, you know, like I said earlier, we're on the right track. Next year, we're going to be going for an accreditation through Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police.
Okay. I remember
They're
hearing that.
raising our bar for the top level departments to reach, and I think that we're not far from that bar, and we want to get there. We are concentrating very hard on hiring the top 1 or 2% of the top recruits throughout the state. We're actually going out into the communities
we
all
are.
over the state and recruiting the best people, and I
Yeah.
know, Dave, you've been a part of that, and it's so very important. And even though we are a little bit behind on hiring, we want to reach 80 officers, and we're in the low 70s now. We're not going to compromise on quality just to get people in the door. So as we continue down the road, we're just going to find the best people. And as an administrator, I think one of my main jobs is to get the officers the best training we can and to get them the best equipment. And I think we've done that. You know, we have the best cars, we have the best equipment, and we certainly have a lot of money invested in training.
Well, you know, and this department has always done that. That's one thing. Since I've been here under Chief Cronin, I know you came in under Chief Cronin, whether it's been the Chief Cronin or Chief Patton, this department has always encouraged officers to seek as much training as they possibly can to be the best officers that the community can have.
Right.
And so that's always been the case here, and
community
I
expects a
appreciate
certain
that.
level of customer service, and I think that we need to exceed that. And I think that we have. And
Yeah.
a lot of that is, we have very educated officers.
Yeah.
They're very professional, and they're trained to the highest standards.
Yeah. Well, as David mentioned, you were doing and you talked about Nixle and all that stuff. What is some of the technology in the future that some of the officers are going to be utilizing to increase their contact and their efficiency working in the community? Can you talk about that a bit?
Well,
we have a couple minutes
Yeah,
left.
sure. What I'd like to say is that, obviously social media and technology is the future of law enforcement. And one of the things that we recognized when I went into the investigations division is, one, that division was already being run very well by Mike Turner. But I was able to come in there and be able to identify that we need to ramp up technology. Mm-hmm. And we invested a lot of money in technology. And right now, our investigations division, that team is one of the top teams in all of Oakland County.
Yes.
They're solving cases that there is no way that we would have solved 3 or 4 years ago. So really, we want to keep raising that bar as far as purchasing and training on technology, and that's department-wide, not just in investigations.
Well, David mentioned you lead by example through your physical dedication, the Ironman and all the things you've done physically. But you've done that, you said we have an educated department, but you've done that as well through education. Chief Patton has a master's and you have your master's. Both of you have gone to the FBI Academy.
Right.
And so you don't just tell the guys, hey, look, keep up on your education or keep up on your physical being. You guys perform it and live it as well.
And
so.
he comes into our roll call, our briefing quite frequently with updates, and I know the guys appreciate it. I know the newsletters appreciate it. You're bringing us to the 21st century, so it's kind of cool for me to watch, being here for 20 years and watching where we're going, and a sense of direction is always appreciated from a patrol officer
Certainly
standpoint.
appreciate that. And I guess I'd like to touch base a little bit. You mentioned earlier about nationally in law enforcement, and certainly we're not getting as many people that are knocking at the door of the police department to be police officers, but
that's not just here, that's nationwide.
Yeah, it's nationwide. I talked to other police chiefs and they're having a difficult time recruiting that top 1%. But obviously nationwide there were some underlying problems that weren't addressed in minority communities. I think as leaders in law enforcement, we need to have a conversation with not only ourselves but people in minority communities and try to bridge that gap.
An honest conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think education and training are the keys. If we're lacking in any of that, as leaders in law enforcement, we've got to raise that bar. We've got to get our officers educated throughout the country and trained to all the same standards.
And I think part of that is that then we can educate the public on what we do and why we do some of the things. And I think as part of your job as the public information officer is you help give a clearer narration to people as to why we do some of the things we do. So we thank you for all that you've done here.
Thank you very much.
And after my career has come to an end, I know it will end sooner than your two. I know that you will continue to have great success here at West Bloomfield, and the officers are lucky to have you as one of the leaders.
Well, I appreciate all your mentoring over the years, and you give me a lot of good advice, and you do an absolutely great job on the 911 show. And Dave, you're going to do well.
He's got some big shoes to fill, so he does a great job.
I appreciate all that you do within the department, because really, you're an officer, but you're one of our informal leaders on the shifts,
absolutely.
and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Now let's all hands. Say kumbaya. DC, don't leave. We're going to remember a fallen officer. Folks, if you look on your screen, you will see Trooper Harold Anderson of the Michigan State Police, who was killed in the line of duty on March 12th, 1921. We remember Trooper Anderson not because he is more important than any other 52 officers in the Michigan State Police who have been killed, but he holds the unfortunate distinction of being the first trooper who has ever lost his life for the Michigan State Police. He was shot and killed while he and another trooper investigated a suspicious vehicle not too far from us in Novi, Michigan. As the two approached the vehicle, the suspect inside opened fire, striking Trooper Anderson in the chest. Both officers returned fire, but didn't strike the suspect, who was later apprehended. So he was just a youngster when he died. He was 22 years old, just a young man. So please remember in your thoughts and in your prayers, Trooper Harold Anderson of the Michigan State Police. and the rest of the men and women of the Michigan State Police who serve every day throughout our state. And we say, rest in peace, brother. Your memory will never be forgotten. Once again, we want to thank our second in command, Deputy Chief Curt Lawson. DC, thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
For taking time out of your busy schedule. And thank my co-host and my esteemed colleague, David Donald McNealy. Dave, thanks for being here and sharing the spotlight here. Appreciate it. Folks, we thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can watch West Bloomfield 911 on Civic Center TV, or you can go to civiccentertv.com. But we also give you a third option. You can go to YouTube, put in West Bloomfield 911, and watch all of our shows. Please keep in touch with the police department as well. You can follow us on Twitter, you can like us on Facebook, and if you really want to know what's going on in the community, sign up for Nixle and Crime Mapping, and soon coming to you will be Snapchat.
Snapchat's coming soon.
So we're looking forward to that. My friends, thank you for watching. Take care of each other, be safe, love one another. Remember, tomorrow is promised to no one. I'm Officer Rick, and I'll see you again on West Bloomfield 911.